Bedřich Smetana was born at Litomyšl in the Czech Republic on the 2nd of March 1824. He was a gifted child prodigy, played in a string quartet at the age of 5, and debuted as a pianist a year after. His father was a brewer and a music lover who gave Smetana much musical training, and the boy was one who learned fast. He received a great blow when he was in Prague in 1843 because nobody was interested to know about him or of his playing. He then yearned for knowledge of music literature, and he studied hard. He succeeded in becoming a teacher, but failed to be recognized as a virtuoso performer. He stepped up his compositional efforts, encouraged profoundly by Liszt's. In 1848, Smetana composed 6 characteristic compositions for the solo piano and dedicated this work to Liszt. The composer wrote this one in one of the crisis periods of his life, when he was unable to make a living in Prague. He was faced with complete ruin because his father refused to send him, and also he refused to accept, financial aid. 24-year-old Smetana had no choice but to write to Liszt, who was in Weimar at that time, seeking help. He needed 400 gold coins to keep his body and soul together in one piece. In the same letter, Smetana attached the manuscript of 6 characteristic compositions, hoping that Liszt would accept his dedication and have them published in Germany. It may be that Liszt had not heard or known about Smetana, but he was pleased with the manuscript and immediately replied to his letter. He apologized for being unable to provide the money because of the general crisis which affected him as well financially. But Liszt praised the work highly, as well as the composer, saying, "The most important, beautifully felt and most tender writing I've come across in recent times." He also accepted the dedication and arranged for the work to be published by the Leipzig firm of Franz Kistner. Although Liszt could not help and the publisher did not pay Smetana, an unknown newcomer, any fee, Liszt's gesture marked a decisive turning point in Smetana's career. The young and terribly underestimated composer now felt honored by having received the warmest praise he could have possibly earned. At that point he became more self-confident, and he was mobilizing himself into the battle for recognition with renewed vigor and perseverance. Years later, when a conductor in the presence of Liszt condescendingly told Smetana his race produced good violinists, but not a single composer to be noted, Liszt sat down at the piano and played from memory the music that Smetana had sent to him, telling the conductor, "Here is a composer with genuine Czech heart, an artist by the grace of God." Revolutions after revolutions shook Bohemia and the rest of Europe at this time. His experience on the barricades and the subsequent brutal suppression of the rebellion by the Austrians began to change his heart and mind on this subject. Smetana's patriotic feelings became awakened by the Prague Revolution of June 11, which collapsed, and German remained the official language for Bohemia. He couldn't even write his native tongue, conducting his business and composing in German, as we can see in the Moldau. He remained unaware of how important it would become for him to master the Czech language in Bohemia and how seriously handicapped he would be until he did so. The next year he married Katerina Kolarova, whom for several years had been his pupil. Their marriage was fraught with tragedy. Only one of their 4 children survived infancy, and Mrs. Smetana herself developed tuberculosis in 1855. In 1856, after years of desperate subsistence living in Prague, he finally secured a conductorship in Sweden, where he also managed to secure some success as a pianist. His orchestral works of this period don't really reflect yet his nationalism. But perhaps the separation from his home country was having an effect, for his first attempt at writing a letter in Czech dates from this year. His wife died in 1859, and he remarried, then 2 years later returned to his native land, where political tension had diminished and the artistic climate had improved. Known as the father of the Czech opera, Smetana wrote Libuscha for reasons beyond patriotism. It deals with the legendary founding of the Przemyslid dynasty and culminates in Libuscha's inspired prophecies of the heroes whose deeds would be chronicled and bring luster to the entire Czech nation. Smetana's command of Czech improved, as shown in his second known letter, in which he wrote, "I'm not ashamed to tell you in my mother tongue, however imperfectly, and am glad to be able to show that my fatherland means more to me than anything else." It was then on that he made a great effort to improve his knowledge of Czech. In 1866 he wrote an opera, The Brandenburgers in Bohemia, which was his first work on national themes. Its premiere in 1866 was not very successful, partly because of people not admiring him much, and partly because of the new political tension brought on by the Austro-Prussian War. The tension shadowed the success of Smetana's second opera, The Bartered Bride, which was to become his most cherished work for the stage. But war shooed Smetana away from the city for a month, but when he returned, The Bartered Bride all of a sudden found its audience and immediately became a popular work. In fact, by 1952, the Prague National Theatre had given this comic opera more than 1,000 performances. In the remaining years of his life, Smetana wrote 6 more operas, all on national subjects. Though all were successful with the public, the Austrian-controlled opera establishment continued to cause difficulties. Sadly, but true, his health started to deteriorate and hearing declined, a result of syphilis. Upon completing Libelshire, Smetana began planning a vast instrumental monument to his nation to complement and continue his earlier conception in the opera. This project became known as the cycle of 6 symphonic poems, Má vlast, or My Country. While composing this cycle, he was troubled to near madness. The high-pitched whistling he heard in one ear was conveyed to us in his autobiographical string quartet, From My Life. All medical attempts to cure his illness, which cost him a lot of money, remained in vain. By 1874, he was completely deaf. Sharing the bitter fate of Beethoven, he spent some of his last years quietly in the country, where he lived with his daughter and second wife. His powers of invention never deserted him till the end. His works reflect the lilting character of his homeland and are harmonically and structurally influenced by the music of Liszt and others. Easy to follow and nice to the ear, it is very unfortunate that his other operas are little known outside his homeland, for they contain much great music. He is also noted as the real founder of Czech music, a direct musical forerunner of Dvořák, Suk, Janacek and Martinu, and the many other fine composers that the Czech lands have produced. Smetana was prolific till the end of his life. His last days were spent in a mental asylum caused by his ill health. He was seriously ill in 1882 and again in 1883. Smetana was taken to the Prague Asylum on the 23rd of April 1884. He died there in the afternoon of May 12. He was buried in the cemetery at Vyšehrad in Prague.